So I'm going to start with story, as I often do.
I want it.
And then we got a couple contributions from you and on our document that we can sift through, because usually what I've been doing the last couple of weeks is I've been going through like a lot of the new material from the book, and it's been really helping me make sense of it. I didn't get a chance. So we record 2 days in a row, even though they come out like more sporadic than that. But I didn't do any writing on the book today because I actually planned the whole Daddy Calvin trip that I'm going to be doing in February. I'm going to be taking Calvin to Oaxaca City, which would be super cool. Yeah, so I planned out, so we're going to do 4 nights just ourselves. There was a book that I read years back by Jim and Jamie Lynn Shields, who I had become friends with, and the book is called 18 Summers. And the idea behind the book is you have 18 summers with your kids, and it's a book written for entrepreneurial parents. And it makes a very, very strong argument to have what they call board meetings, which is kind of a play on words because they're surfers as well in terms of real estate entrepreneurs. And so it's a board meeting, like a surfboard meeting, but like a business board meeting. And to actually carve out time like you would carve out time for employees, to have one-on-one time with each kid in your family. And they're very specific. It's not family time. It's one-on-one time with each kid in your family. And so I've been really, really looking forward to when Calvin was old enough that I'd be able to do this kind of stuff with him. So we're going to take our first solo trip together in February, and we're going to go to Oaxaca City and explore and go to the markets. And we already have decided that we're going to taste the different ice creams of Oaxaca and have different ice cream from a different place every single night.
Nice.
All of this hasn't been said. I didn't write anything new this morning, so I don't have as much new material to talk about. Regardless, this story is about Lewis. And Lewis said he doesn't have money for a coach, which is not true. So Lewis is a struggling mindset coach, and Lewis's systems suck. He doesn't charge enough considering how much time he spends with a client. And as a result, doesn't have enough time to market. It results in spotty lead generation efforts. When he does get new clients every so often, because he's been doing this for a long time, but it's super random, it's super sporadic. And so some months are good and some are bad. And when he does get a client, he has no idea where they come from. He can't replicate what he did to get them. And then when he actually has a client, he has no way of knowing, like, I think there's a lot to be said about rigidity in the transformation and in what you're trying to help somebody accomplish and in how you offer your services. I think different people need different services for sure. But I do. And so Lewis has no idea, like, even how to offer his services. Like, he knows that he can help people and he has the abilities to help people, but it's very random and buckshot and scatter prone. And so he needs a coach. Coaches need coaches, and Lewis needs a coach. He's good at helping his client's mindset. He's bad at the business side. He's got no structure. He's got no rigidity in his service, and it's burning him out like mad. And he's considering a career change. And this was Lewis and I spoke. I don't even know. I call it 3 years ago. It was a couple years ago that I'm reflecting on this story. Lewis. So when I say Lewis doesn't want to hire a coach, this is like 3 years ago. All right. So Lewis didn't want to hire a coach yet. He said that he doesn't have the money. And the problem isn't that Lewis doesn't have the money for a coach. And I know this because Lewis is a friend of mine. He has no dependents. He has no debt, but he buys designer clothing all of the time. And he upgrades to the newest iPhone every single time a new iPhone comes out. Lewis has enough money for a coach. He has the money to get the business help he needs. The problem, though, for him is that the pain isn't quite bad enough. Like, Lewis is coasting. He's been coasting for years. He's doing fine. But fine is a really, really dangerous position to be in. And I want to talk a little bit today, or start today, about how if you are coasting, if you were in a position where you're just doing fine, things aren't good, things aren't quite bad, but things aren't good, things aren't growing, that's actually the most dangerous position to be in. So when COVID-19 shut down the fitness industry, I don't know if you guys can recall this. Well, Amber's on mute today because she doesn't have the coverage for her son. So when, I don't know if you remember this article, but I wrote an article early on when COVID shut down the fitness industry. So very, very early on, when the shutdowns happened. And it was called The Fitness Industry is Broken, a story about hope. Do you remember that article? I don't know.
I actually remember the title of that article. Normally I scroll past things you write, but I believe that I actually read that article. Can you give me some reminders? Can you give me some gentle hints? I'm sure you're going to explain it in greater detail, but yes, I remember that. I remember the exchange that I had with you personally at the same time, as a matter of fact. I'll share that if you'd like for me to. I remember a personal exchange that you and I had at that time as well, and I'm willing to share that if there's space in your explanation for it, because I think it will coincide with what you're about to talk about.
Oh, tell me about the personal exchange.
So as soon as the pandemic happened, and we knew that something was
March 2020.
Yeah, that's March. Yeah. And we knew that this thing was happening. I asked you, I specifically reached out to you and I said, Jonathan, I want to do some type of challenge, something for people who are stuck in their homes, no cost, and you advised me on two things. You said, number one, people don't need a specific result right now, but they need you to facilitate something. If you can facilitate something that keeps them involved and invested, somewhat distracted, that's going to be very purposeful for most people. And you said
distracted was a big part of it.
Yeah, big part of it. And you said, but don't make it more than 7 days. So people aren't going to really, they're not going to really hone in on something more than 7. Give them a week's worth of something that's structured, that will offer sort of a shared humanity, and that will set up an environment of community. And that's exactly what I did. And I called it the world's greatest 7-day challenge. I did it sometime mid-March 2020. It was very successful for me personally. As a human, I felt good about giving that to people. And obviously it rolled into a very...
What was in it? I vaguely remember this conversation now that you mentioned it. Yeah, but it might just be, when you have these memories of when you were a kid and you're not quite sure if they're actually a memory and not a memory, or just you've seen the same picture over and over again and you make up a memory in your mind. But then your best friend, like who you quote unquote were with, has like the exact opposite memory.
Right.
Malcolm Gladwell's explored that a fair bit. He's talked about flashbulb memories, which there are certain periods of our life where like large scale events happen. So like 9/11 was one of them. Or, when Osama bin Laden was captured or whatever, right? Just like a major historical event where everybody can remember where they were and what they were doing when it happened. That's called a flashbulb memory. The problem is most people's memories are wrong, are fallible, and they actually don't remember what they were doing, but they're damn sure that they were.
Right.
And Malcolm Gladwell tells a story. He lived in a tenement walk-up in New York City, and he told a story. I think this was a live event that I went to see him speak at. So I don't know if it's written anywhere, maybe it is. But he told a story about his neighbor who lived above him, who he was very close with. When it happened, he went up to her apartment and basically commiserated with her, and because they were in New York City, commiserated with her. And he vividly remembers being at her dinner table and what it was like and what was on the TV and everything, and talking to her. And she vividly remembers being in his apartment.
Wow. It makes sense.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So I have a bit of a memory. So I have a bit of a memory of us talking about this. It might just be because you brought it up, and it didn't.
It probably happened. We talked about something around that time. I'll fill in the blanks. So, John, you asked specifically what was in it.
Yeah,
what was it? Very simple. I had 3 nutritional lessons. One was eating slowly. One was getting enough protein. One was getting 5 different colors of fruits and vegetables. I presented that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday of that week were exercise routines, simple body weight exercise circuit. I literally recorded it on YouTube, right? I put the exercise on YouTube. At the time, you could make a playlist. So I sent them the link to a YouTube playlist. And this was all done through a free Facebook group. And it was done through not MailChimp, but the other one, Aweber, because that was a part of our OTA training.
They still send me checks for like $48 a month. I've been getting like $50 to $100 a month for them in affiliate commissions since like 2011.
That's for me and Aweber. So literally what happened is every day the clients would get an email. I automated it so the email came at 2:00 a.m. Eastern time. The email would say what the structure was for the day. And the link to the YouTube video or series, whether it was nutritional information or whether it was the exercise routine. And then at the end of the day, in the group, I'd say, hey, we're at the end of day 1. comment what your thoughts are about eating slowly and how that helps. So
Right.
after
Okay.
each day, it will be a summary in the group. So
Some
email for the
celebration or
information,
whatever. Yeah.
summary and celebration in the group. 7 days. On the 7th day, the Sunday, we just talked generally about it. And that was a gateway for sales for me. Hey, if you love this, here are 3 other ways I can help you. Rob that right from what you do with PTDC emails. One way I could help you was exercise, one way exercise nutrition, third way join my free Facebook group. That's for blah 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 over blah blah blah. And that's what I facilitated at that point in the pandemic, and people really appreciate it. So segue to your article, right?
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you about the article a little bit, but I want to stick on this because I think this is a good topic to hit on. I like a lot of what you did there. I don't like pieces of it, but it's more preference than anything else.
Right.
I just would have done it differently. But what I like most about that is that you kept it really simple. There was a combination of like mantra type stuff, reminders, like things that over the course of a day, you're just going to do this little thing or say this little thing or remind yourself about this little thing that's just going to make you be like blip. Oh yeah, no, this is how I'm eating today.
Yes.
For example.
Yes.
And same type of thing with movement. It was just a very, very simple movement thing that anybody can do no matter where they are. And it's just going to make them feel better. And then what I particularly love about it was that you had almost a celebration or acknowledgement spot where they could celebrate themselves for doing that thing. I don't actually like the way that you voiced it in the group. I think it should have like called that out. It should be like, celebrate yourself. You did something great today. Tell me what you did.
Yes.
But I really do like that structure. A lot of people, particularly in the beginnings of COVID, I think tried to do way too much. And people were very hurt. People were very confused. Most of us have never seen or experienced anything like this in our lives before. I certainly hadn't. And I just had no idea what was going on. I mean, if you had actually listened to the doctors and the epidemiologists leading up to it, you knew that it was a big deal leading up to it. But personally, I didn't think anything of it until I was there in the co-work space that we rented an office out of, looking at the TV, listening to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tell us that Canada was shutting down.
Right.
And that was, I mean, until the moment when I saw on the TV that he said, Canada shutting down, and I looked around at all the different coworkers and colleagues at the office, you know, my business, but also other people's businesses. And we're like, well, I guess I won't see it tomorrow. And so a lot of people were confused, rightfully so, justifiably so. And so they got up and they tried to do all these grandiose things, but I don't know about you, I didn't have the capacity for any of that, to absorb any of that. I actually put out, so we created very quickly a coalition, if you remember. It was largely spearheaded by myself and Justin Crow, who at that point was the head of business partnerships. I think head of business development, but definitely head of business partnerships at Precision Nutrition. He doesn't work for them anymore, but Jason and I have been friends for a long time. We actually live around the corner from one another in Toronto. So we go for walks and stuff all the time. And we spearheaded an initiative, and we got a bunch of other companies involved. And we started to create resources and whatnot for fitness professionals, and we put on some live talks and whatnot. And in the first big live talk, the only really major one we did, I mean, there was like tens of thousands of people listening, was my advice was very simple, which was, people don't need you to tell them what to do right now. I don't think that they need that. I think what people need is to know that there's somebody there in their corner right now.
Right.
And so what I advised people to do at that moment was just send your clients a message and just say, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Can I help you with anything?
Yep. And
like,
I did that.
Like period. Like that was it. And normally I would actually very much advise against sending questions like that, because when you ask somebody a question like that, you know, I get it all the time. I don't know if you get it too, but I get all the time people say something to the tune of, hey, you know, let me know if I can help you with something. To me, that's actually a very selfish question to ask somebody, because what you're doing is basically saying, hey, in order for me to help you, I'm putting the onus on you to figure out
exactly
how
right.
I can help you.
Exactly right.
And as opposed to saying, hey, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Like I could be wrong, but I noticed you're not doing this one thing. And so I went ahead and I did it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. Does that help? And, you know, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But this was a rare case where I don't know, I felt like people just needed to know that somebody was thinking about them,
Right.
because it was just so confusing and painful. And that advice seemed to, I know a lot of people did it, and a lot of people got very, very positive reactions and responses, and it helped with their relationships with their clients during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me talk about this article. You cool to move on? You want to hit on?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
want to talk
yeah.
about that a little bit more?
No.
I mean, all of this is like, in
It's the
retrospect,
same.
it's interesting to look back on, but the
It
truth of the
is.
matter is, are we going to experience something like what happened with the COVID shutdowns of March 2020 again? Probably not, for a few reasons. One is, if there's shutdowns again, people are going to be like, that's same old shit again.
Right.
Right. They're not
Right.
going to be confused. They're probably going to be more angry than anything else.
Right.
But, or divisive or whatever. And the people
Whatever.
who, you know, have decided that they hate their country,
Right.
whatever country that might be, and have decided to leave to go to another country for more freedom, you know, have already left and they're already in that country. So it's probably going to be like cleaner in a way, in a weird way. But
you guys going to shut down the border again? Pretend like shut off the Canadian immigration website again?
That was the greatest passive aggressive move. That wasn't COVID though.
No, that was the election.
That was the election. The night that Donald Trump got elected, the Canadian immigration website got quote unquote overloaded and shut down. I think it was the greatest passive aggressive move by any country to any other country pretty much ever.
Yeah. Well, regardless of how you feel about the election, either way, like that's
just funny. It's just funny.
It doesn't matter either way. But you basically threw snacks downstairs and was like, "You kids don't come up from the basement until the morning." That's basically what you did. Snack boxes at the bottom of the stairs. That's basically what happened. That's neither here nor there. I'm going to give you a pass on that one, Jonathan. You
made me very proud to be Canadian.
Yeah, you've been nice to me otherwise, but your whole country passively aggressively dissed me, and I don't want to get into that. I'm getting antsy like Amber was the other day. I don't want to do that.
COVID-19. I wrote an article called "The Fitness Industry is Broken: A Story About Hope," and I'm going to tell you how this relates to Lewis. I'm going to tell you about how this relates to Lewis saying that he doesn't have enough money to afford a coach, whereas he really does, and how he's coasting, and why coasting is a dangerous part to be in, and how this relates to people potentially telling you that they don't have the money to afford your coaching. I'm gonna bring us all together, my friend.
I love it. Do it, Jonathan. Unite the world. It's like a
You're
Michael Jackson song.
So supportive. I love it.
Yeah, it's the Michael Jackson song is about to happen.
I've always wanted an MC. I've always wanted an MC.
That's me.
And I think your name is MC Tuck Tuck.
Oh my God. Amber's head is going to explode when she listens to this again. She's probably listening now, but exploding silently. She's never going to leave
us to ourselves again.
Never. And nobody should. Nobody should.
In that article, what I argued was that despite the pain that these shutdowns were causing, we were all going to come out of it better. And that was a really hard thing to see in the moment, because like it was painful. It sucked. Like it hurt everybody. I mean, I was at home with a young kid who should have been at school. Try to do digital schooling with a junior kindergarten on Zoom. Like that just ain't fucking happening. and this is March in Canada. It's cold outside. So it sucked. But I argued that we were all going to come out better. I argued that before COVID-19, a lot of people who worked in fitness were coasting. Things were bad for them. They weren't happy. They were burning out. And they were definitely being taken advantage of in a lot of cases. But their situation was fine. just like Lewis. Wasn't good, but it wasn't quite bad enough to force them into the decision that they had to make. And the decision is twofold, right? Choice number one, door number one. Which door are you going to choose? Door number one? Door number one is to change by doing the scary thing to make your situation better. Or door number two, quit and try something different. COVID-19 broke the industry. Looking back in retrospect, I'm still confident saying that. It made things bad enough that it forced people into making a damn decision. And some decided to rise to the challenge, to level up, to evolve, and others decided not to. They left the industry to get a more conventional job. And both of those decisions were reasonable, and both groups are better off as a result. And I tell you the story because change is hard. Change goes against all of our instincts to do something new and different when things are going well. Even if you know something isn't going well, right? It's pretty difficult to recognize any areas of vulnerability. So when you sign up a client to your coaching, what you're actually asking them to do is you're asking them to commit to making a change. Money is often voiced as an objection. It's usually not. Sometimes it is. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes people legitimately can't afford your coaching. But people have an uncanny ability to find the money when the pain has gotten big enough, or a coach has shown them that this time it's going to be different, and this time there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Lewis had the money. He wasn't in pain enough to invest to fix his business, right? Because in his case, he was just blinding himself to the reality of the decision. And he's actually still a coach today, and nothing's changed. He's fine. It's not good, hasn't grown. Would not be able to afford, I mean, he's single. He would not be able to afford supporting a family. But he can support himself in renting a one-bedroom apartment. And you know, he's still struggling. He's still randomly posting content when he gets a fit of inspiration, only to stop again after 2 to 3 weeks. And he's still barely paying his bills. And like I said, I mean, he's fine, but that pain hasn't been bad enough. So money can sometimes be a stopping point, but it's more often a default objection that's used because the person isn't nice enough, or they're too nice, to tell you they either don't believe you can help them, or it isn't important enough for them to do the hard thing right now and change. The real objection that you have to overcome in any kind of a change conversation, which when you're signing somebody up to coaching, it is a change conversation. The real objection that you have to overcome is convincing a person that now's the right time to make that change for them. And if you can do that, I think you'll be surprised at how quickly people tend to find the money. I say all of this fully recognizing that it's hard, because change is hard. Change is really, really hard.
This is the absolute truth. That's first of all, I just want to double down on the fact that there was no third door for the youth fitness, because people out there listening might think, oh, there's probably something else people did. No, literally, people either leveled up. Fitness and wellness industry, they either leveled up or they launched out. They left. That was it.
Both, I think both were good decisions.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that somebody could have done when faced with I don't have another word for it, the shit.
Yeah.
The fucking shit storm that happened.
That's all it was.
In March 2020 was to not do anything, was to not take this as a sign that this is an opportunity. This sucks, right? But this is an opportunity to figure out what the hell I'm doing here.
Right.
Am I just somebody who likes to work out, and so figured becoming a personal training would kind of be fun to do. And then I got kicked around a bunch of gyms and I never quite made it. And the gym owner, and I always hated the gym owners and thought that they were stupid. And, I can't believe that they're taking such a high percentage, but what else am I going to do? Then I went to another gym and it was going to be better, but holy shit, it's the same thing. Now I tried to go out on my own and oh my God, getting clients are harder than I thought that it was. And I took, this is harder than I thought it was going to do. And really all that I wanted to do in the first place was just figure out a way to exercise for a living. It's like, well, maybe your mistake was that you tried to turn your passion into a job.
Right.
And maybe it should have just stayed being your passion. And you should get a different job. And
Right.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, because oftentimes, and I'm not the first person to say this, when you turn your passion into a job, it often ceases to be your passion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people in fitness, when they become personal trainers, they kind of start doing it on the side first and they love it. And then
Right.
they decide to jump all in. And when they jump all in and they have to pay all of their bills and support their family with their fitness career, well, all of a sudden now they start holding fitness in contempt and they stop
Yes.
loving it for themselves again.
Yes.
And I think that that's a really bad thing. Now, I mean, there's ebbs and flows to your own fitness. Like there were certainly times when I was personal training, when I was hustling my ass off in my personal training career. I mean, I'd train 12, 13 clients in a day, one-on-one. I mean, I would do 9 or 10 clients in a row. And
brutal.
I would come to work. We had a Magic Bullet blender in the back in the staff room. And I would come to work with the Magic Bullet like containers with my meals in them. Like there would be chicken and broccoli, there would be smoothies, and I would do the most hypercaloric foods I could find. So a lot of nuts,
Right.
a lot of pumpkin, a lot of that type of thing.
So you didn't die.
I'd know which clients were going to be 5 or 10 minutes late because they were always 5 or 10 minutes late for their
Right.
session. So I'd finish one client and I'd run to the back and I'd take one of these things and I'd blend it. Right. I'd blend my meal and I'd walk back on the floor and my client would be showing up and I'd be sipping this like meal, basically shake that I'd
Right.
make. And then coffee, I wouldn't drink coffee on the floor because nobody wants to smell your coffee breath,
Right.
but I would have caffeine pills.
Right.
And I would have, 50, 100 milligram caffeine. A coffee is usually like 150. If it's Starbucks, like 400 milligrams of caffeine. But people are like, why do I love Starbucks so much? It's like, because there's 4 times
You're
the
addicted.
caffeine than any other coffee. They figured out the formula to addict you by just giving you way more caffeine than anybody else. And, but anyway, like a 50, 100 milligram caffeine pill. And then I'd go back on the floor. And so like in those times, yeah, no shit. My fitness was not as good
Right.
as other times. It didn't mean that I didn't love it though. There were certainly times when I didn't look forward to working out as much as others though. I mean, I just didn't want to be there anymore.
Right. I've got a question for you, John. It's a philosophical question. People talk about passion a lot, right? And I think that there's a distinction between passion and purpose, right? I think that passion is something that you're really, really interested in, right? It turns your gears, gets you going. I think purpose is a thing that you can't avoid doing, even if you try. For it, and I'll present to you this question. Do you think that as you are now, is there a chance in hell that somebody walks up to you, you start a conversation with somebody and you find out that they have some type of personal professional service business? Is there a chance, if you have the time, is there a chance that you do not engage in that conversation and just sort of does your mind immediately go to, oh, you're in professional service, so what do you do? Oh, how do you do it?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like, are you so
somebody
inquisitive?
Comes up to me?
Do you feel so interested and purposeful in helping people structure their service business? No. It's not a thing that you would talk about.
It gets to the point. I mean, I'm no celebrity, dude.
Right.
But there are a number of people that look to me as some sort of an expert on this thing. I get a lot of questions every day.
An expert on everything, though.
I get a lot of like long questions, situational questions every day. I just can't do it. Every once in a while I'll engage, and I don't have a rhyme or reason for why I'll do it or how I'll do it. It's
Mhm.
probably just like an energetic thing. Like, do I feel like it at that point? Or they triggered something in me that triggered some sort of curiosity.
Right.
And so like this conversation with Jenna that happened, the last episode we talked about it with Jenna's, what did we call it? The consulting trap or something. It was a terrible name we gave for it, but
It was a horrible name.
we're going to practice with those names.
Yeah,
but
that was just bad.
it was just a bad name. But with Jenna's business, this was a conversation I had with her a few weeks ago. And normally I would not have engaged with that conversation, but
Mhm.
I was like in it, like I was like in the mindset of writing the book
Mhm.
and thinking about acquiring stories for the book.
Right.
And she brought it up and I was just like, that is such a common mistake by somebody who gives so much of a shit
Mhm.
that I engaged that because I really
Right.
wanted to know more and get more details about it. And so sometimes somebody will like trigger something in me because of something that I'm doing. And I want to
Right.
know more because I want to have stories to tell or understand the problem better. Or sometimes somebody will just trigger something in me where I'm just like, oh, that's like, could be like a potentially interesting solution or angle to it. And so there's somebody else here, Julia is her name. And she runs part of a coaching service. So she basically helps people, elderly men and women with brain health and sell supplements for it. And it's very much a direct marketing company. And it's interesting because I've known her and her family for a lot of years. For 3 years, we've like lived in the same complex with them. They're here for months on end. So are we. We have kids around the same age. We spend a lot of time with them. And her business is similar to mine in a lot of ways and different in a lot of ways. It's similar in that, there's a coaching component, sort of health fields. It's different in that hers is a full-on direct marketing, paid advertising, client cost, lead acquisition type business. There's no personal brand. There's no real community or anything to speak of. It is, they sell supplements. There's like one like brain health supplement that they sell that they try to get people on auto ship on. And then they sell coaching to these people on the back end. The coaching is a high-end coaching service. And so with her, she's very, very smart. She's done a lot of very, very high-end education with a lot of the like really expensive education, sales, training type groups. And so I'm interested with what she's doing because they basically shut it down because it wasn't working and have started it back up and now it's working well. And so I want to, they left town actually today for a couple of weeks, but when she comes back, her and I are going to have a long conversation because I'm just like, it doesn't mean that I'll necessarily be like, oh, that's the right thing. But like, there were a lot of really smart people that she paid a lot of money to that taught her how to fix her broken sales process for a coaching service. And her sales process is also very different than ours, for example, where for our mentorship, we have a sales process. We have a very, very good sales process. It's very much consultative. Whether you buy or not buy, you're going to come out of it better than you entered.
Right.
And I'm proud of that. But the difference is in almost every case, people entering in that sales process or already have some level of like bought in. They know me, they followed me, they've engaged with some content. They've read some of my books. It's warm, right? Whereas her sales process is not at all. You could be anybody. And so it's purely based off of the problem and the solution. Way harder than what I do. Because what I do, there's very much a warm lead where there's some trust there. They have to create that trust in often a 45-minute or hour conversation and get somebody signed up for a multi-$1,000 coaching program. So to answer your question,
yeah, it makes sense.
In almost every case, no. I just can't. I mean, shit, man. I got asked to be an expert for an article today for a big publication. And I thought that it was going to be an online article. And when I found out it was going to be a print article, I just said no. I was like, you're not, why? There's no leverage here, right? An online article means that I get a link back.
Right.
And that's worth it for me to get on the phone with you for 20 or 30 minutes and answer questions you have or whatever. But print, there's no leverage. I only really want to do things now that I think will continue to serve me over and over and over again. Like I'll be on a podcast, but I'm not going to be on a radio show, because a radio show goes live once and then it's gone. A podcast is there forever.
Right.
And content, the same type of thing. Like, I'm only going to produce content that I feel like I could reuse and repurpose and turn into different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And have it work for me. I don't want to just put it out once and then forget about it and then do it again. It's just not enough time. And the same thing with answering questions. I'd love to answer more questions and try to help more people one-on-one, or at least give people more insight or give people questions to ask themselves. But how? Like, my work day is like 4 hours long, dude. Like on a good day. I got 2 young kids. I've got a software company. I've got 2 businesses. I want to do this podcast. I want to do content. Like, where would I find that time?
It makes sense. But it poses another interesting question for me, and then I'll stop asking questions so we can move the show along. But as you're talking, I'm getting questions in my head that I think that the audience would love to get insight.
Well, the filters,
Yeah.
I think, are valuable to. No, my filters are, I only want to do things if I feel like they're going to gain me additional leverage.
Right.
I have had a large team, not large by like big business standards, but I've had a large team with a few dozen staff. And I've decided that for this season of my life, I don't want that. I really only want my work wife, Amber, and basically contractors that we work with. And that means that I need to be very, very good at only doing things that create tremendous amounts of leverage. That can be done through code, i.e. with our software, or automation, email automation. That can be done through content strategically chosen, like content that's going to work for me and isn't just up there once. So this, like that conversation, like, I'm not going to be interviewed for a print article.
Right.
No matter what the publication is, but I'm happy to be interviewed if it's a high ranking, high domain authority website that promises to give me a follow link back.
Right.
Then that's worth 20 or 30 minutes, because that's leverage to me. That means that will help my content go up. So I think the value of the audience is to figure out what that filter is for you, because that really helps you figure out what to do and what not to do over the course of the day. And that changes over time too.
And I'm sure it changes depending on where in your career you are. I think, I really think that's I think one of the most challenging parts of increasing success in any sort of personal services or entrepreneurial endeavor is, as you get better at it and more notoriety from it, getting better at assigning new layers of filtration for your choices. I think a lot of people crash because of that, because they get to a point where there's enough notoriety and they never step away from this thought process of feeling like, because I can do everything, I should do everything. I think that's a quagmire. That's quicksand for a lot of people.
I had a conversation with a high school friend of mine yesterday. Neil Winokur is his name, and he goes by the moniker the Grumpy Accountant. And he wrote a book called The Grumpy Accountant, basically talking about how the Canadian taxation system is just fucking idiotic, which it is. It is so unbelievably fucking stupid. And I knew that before I read the book. And then when I read the book, I was just so unbelievable. It's like, if Canada, he does all these like back in the napkin calculations. He's like, if Canada simplified the taxation system so that anybody making under $90,000 doesn't have to file a tax return, and there's no benefits, there's no nothing, they would make X amount less dollars in tax. They would have X amount more dollars in money because of the reduction in administration and bureaucratic fees.
Wow.
It's so unbelievably stupid and complicated. It's like, okay, spend tens of thousands of dollars a year on accountants to file your tax return and send us all of the documents that you have. Oh, by the way, our documents show that your documents are wrong, so you have to send us more. Well, why the hell did I send in my documents? Like, if you had all this shit anyway, why am I sending it to you? This is coming from a guy, to give you an idea. I had 2 separate audits that both got closed in the last month. One of the audits was for my advertising and consultant expenses from 2019. They decided to audit randomly. And the other audit was for my tax, so HST, GST, basically my like sales tax, for I think it was Q2 2022. And it cost me, I don't actually have the accountant's bill, but I can tell you right now that it cost me at least $10,000 in accountant's fees. And both of them have come back and they said, yep, you're right. You don't owe anything more. Oh, by the way, you can write off those expenses for your accountant's fees as a taxable expense.
Oh my gosh.
It's just idiotic. Anyway, Neil is, so if you live in Canada, buy this book called The Grumpy Accountant. It'll help you like simplify your stuff. It was a very good book. He did a good job with it, but he quit accounting. And he basically just got so upset. He's like, I hate that people have to pay me to do this.
Right.
It is such a dumb job. And he took some time off and now he's basically doing like financial advising. And so anyway, he asked me, because one of the things that I said to him is something that we said on this first. I don't remember even what we were talking about, but I basically said to him, because he was talking about, he's like, one of the ideas that I had was actually building a financial management company, an accounting company specifically for fitness professionals and personal trainers. And I said, that's a dumb idea. And he said, why? And I said, because they have no money and they quit the industry so fast. And he kind of laughed and I was like, no, it's serious. Like, your lifetime value is going to be low and your customer acquisition costs are going to be high. Like, it's a bad market to create a service towards. And I said, I was like, I don't even want to think. Amber and I have spoken about this. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast. I don't even want to think how many more tens of millions of dollars I would have right now if I did exactly what I've done for the fitness industry, but for dentists or chiropractors or physiotherapists or something like that.
We had here.
Did we have that conversation?
Yeah, three or maybe 4 recorded episodes back. I don't know if they would have aired by this point, but yes, and so I remember that conversation. Yeah.
So he asked me. So the reason I brought it up is he said, well, that could be a really interesting idea. Somehow recreate the model you've built for every other niche out there: dentists, chiros, plumbers, electricians, realtors. He's like, why limit yourself to one niche? Mm-hmm. And my response to him was, because I'm good. I could do it, but I don't need to do it. And I don't want to do it. And I'm good.
Right.
So why do it? And then I had a conversation with Luka Hocevar. If you're familiar with him, a fantastic gym owner, content creator in the fitness industry. And we spoke, he's going to be actually a good case study for, he's going to be adopting Quick Coach, our software for fitness and nutrition pros. He's going to be adopting Quick Coach for his gyms. And so he'll be a good case study for like how to make it work for a small enterprise. Mm-hmm. And he asked me, he's like, why did you not build like a small enterprise solution for Quick Coach? Like, are you going to build it? And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. And I said to him the kind of canned answer that I say to everybody, which is true, which is like, I don't think that we can measurably improve on existing software for small enterprise, like a trainer with a couple trainers who work for them, or a gym with a couple staff, or even a few locations. Like I don't think that we can measurably improve on that. And I'm simply not interested in trying to build something that's effectively the same, but try to do it a little bit better than somebody else.
Right.
It's just not, I think that's a terrible market to play in.
Yeah.
B, I'm just not interested. And then I kind of took a step back and then I was like, to be honest, we're kind of having like a heart to heart. I was like, to be honest, man, the real reason I don't do it is it just sounds hard. And I just don't want to do things that sound hard right now.
Right. But that's such a fair answer. Like, why can't we admit that as humans? Like, this shit sounds like it sucks, quite frankly. So
like
no.
it sounds like it sounds
Okay.
like yes, there's opportunity there, but it sounds really hard.
I just don't want to do that. I just don't do it. And going back from the mantra that we teach, one of those two core tenets of Online Trainer Academy and online training, what would this look like if it were easy?
Yeah,
It's
right?
such a good question. It's such a good question for so many areas of life. Like, we complicate things out of the idea that we will get to brag about them, and that will raise our status with the rest of humanity when you're just making shit hard for no reason, or choosing to do hard things that you hate. Like, the same turkey, different bread for me. Like, I don't want to do either one of those two things. It's just a complete waste of life.
So let's go. You have on this document, Ren needs to confess and ask co-hosts for guidance.
Yes.
So I want to know what that is, and just know that it's not going to be co-hosts for guidance. It's only going to be co-host.
That's all right.
Because Amber is very actively working on Quick Coach while she is
very good.
producing our podcast right now.
Very good.
I'm just getting like text messages flying in. I'm like, Amber.
Right. She's like, she doesn't know what you're doing right now. You need to turn the on-air sign on outside of the booth. So
Yeah, right.
this is a great segue, actually, to what you just talked about those filters. Here's what I've discovered. Here's the confession that I have to make. I'm not fond of enrolling in January. I said it. I know it's sacrilegious to the wellness industry.
What do you mean? Say that in words that
I'm
like
not
somebody
fond.
dumb like me can understand.
I don't like enrolling clients in January. I feel
you don't want to sign up new clients in January.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
It's just here's what I've discovered, and this has been multiple Januaries. First of all, I do really well in December, maybe because most people throw December in the trash for wellness in the wellness space. There's all these assumptions, right? Oh, you can't, blah blah blah. I'm like the little engine that could. My processes, I just keep them going, no matter what time of year it is. No matter what the bear market, bull market, I don't give a shit about that.
I think actually, I don't want to skim over that point because I think that is such a good point. You can overthink so much.
Absolutely.
All of these stories that we make up in mind. Oh, January is better, so I'm not going to enroll now. You're actually better off just doing your thing and ignoring all of this. There was a book that I read, an investment book. I think it was called Just Keep Buying. Just Keep Buying by Nick Magley. I might pronounce his last name wrong, but it's called Just Keep Buying, Proven Ways to Save Money and Build Your Wealth. And as you know, if you've listened to this podcast, I think wealth generation is a fascinating subject. It's something that I'm really interested in, the psychology of it, the management of it. I also think it's just really fucking important. And this book used a ton of data to make an unbelievably convincing argument that you are way better off completely ignoring whatever the heck is happening at any given time and just doing an average buy of an investment that tracks the stock market basically every month or every just like you pick some structure every month, every quarter, every week, every year, every whatever, and you just don't even think about it. It's just automated. And you will actually be better off doing that than trying to pick and choose your moments. Yes. Now, if you pick and choose your moments and hit it one time, it feels really good. Whereas if you're just like average buying, there's none of that like high, there's none of that dopamine hit. And so what you just hit on is exactly that. I think you're better off in a coaching business. And this is what I've done with my business. I don't give a shit what we don't do Black Friday sales. We don't do this. We don't do that. It's just
exactly,
we just do our thing. We do our thing day in and day out. We execute day in, day out, and we just grow slow. It's the tortoise versus the hare, right?
It's
we just roll. And that has served me so much better. And I think that would serve so many
Yes.
more coaches to just be like,
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if it's December 22nd.
Right. I just don't care. And one of the leading questions that I get from coaches that we are mentoring is, I'm thinking about doing an enrollment on this date, this magical date. How much magic do you think is in this date? And I'm like, okay, cool.
Your answer to them should be like, you know what a better idea is? You should do it today.
Right. Do it today. Do it today. Because in any case, so this is my, that's a whole nother, that's an entire episode of the podcast. But
I feel like just do it today is actually a great name for a podcast.
It's a great name for a podcast because it implies that you should listen to it today. So in any case, so I don't think that there's anything problematic with January, you know, to the point that you just made. Like, there's nothing special or unspecial about it. What I found about myself, though, my personality is the issue. The human in me is the problem, because I get so overwhelmed with the noise of January and wellness and fitness and the waist trainers and the detox teas and the pills and
that's your problem though, man. You got to be like me and just ignore all of that shit.
I need to
like,
be like
I don't
that.
see it. Like, I don't even see it.
I need to be like that.
I see none of it.
I think
none of it. It could be the middle of July for all I know right now. I mean, to be fair, I go pretty far in my life to live in like really remote places.
Right.
And I generally don't know what month it is anyway.
And you don't like the internet. I mean, social specifically is not, you're not a consumer of social media in that way.
No, but where I do, I try to, I mean, social media, like it serves you what you look at.
Right. Exactly.
And so what I think you do a lot of the time is you look at stuff for research a fair bit.
Yes.
For your audience. So you see a lot of the people who market to your audience.
Yes.
And
that's it. That is
crumples your panties a little bit.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head, Jonathan. Like, even if I don't look, because I'm coaching women, primarily mothers over 30, they are bringing this to me all the time. Like, they want my opinion, and I get that. But what I found is that the juice isn't worth the squeeze for me specifically. I do very well in December. I could do well in January if I wanted to, but my energy levels and my tolerance are such that January is more than likely going to be a part of the year every year for me, where I am planning, researching, preparing for my year to start in February.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And that's what I wanted to, you know, I wanted to confess that, because it sounds, let's be honest, it sounds anti-wellness sales, right?
Yeah,
it could sound that way.
It sounds sacrilege.
You're right, because of the industry.
Yeah, you do need time off,
right?
A lot of people who work in the industry don't give themselves permission to take time off.
This is true.
And you do need time to plan. I think you also need time to go hard, and you need time to take a step back. One of the best books that I read very, very early on in my journey, my self-development journey, like a couple years into my training career, when I really got into that, was a book called The Power of Full Engagement. And I don't even remember why I picked it up, but this was like years ago that I read it. So correct me if I'm wrong, somebody who's read it. But what it did is it applied periodization principles to business, to self-development. And what it made an argument for was that, like we build our body, when you encounter a lot of stress and you push your boundaries physically for a period of time, if you don't ever stop, then it'll break. But if you stop and take time away, the next time you will rebound better and become stronger and become more resilient. Well, our mental abilities work the same way. We should strain ourselves. We should stress ourselves. We should push our boundaries of work ethic, of production, but we can't do it all the time.
Right.
What we should do is actually apply the same type of physical periodization principles. And what that does is over time, create that nice stepwise pattern that we all know is true of how the body works, and just continually move up our abilities by stress and strain, relax, let the body adapt, let the brain adapt, move up to the next, to the next, to the next. I used to do this in September.
Really?
And historically, September is a really good time for fitness as well.
It's great for me.
It's one of the best months of the year.
I can count on it every year.
But here's why I took it off. September is often when the Jewish high holidays fall.
Mm.
And a lot of my clients were Jewish. And so they were off. And so I planned my year every year to take time off in September for that reason. Right. And I travel, and I did a rafting trip in the Grand Canyon with my dad and whatever. Anyway, okay, let's wrap it up. Amber says that her computer's dying and her charger's garbage. And she says, plus we're at the hour mark. And also I'll add to that, Allison bought cookies today, and I kind of
nice. Next time, just lead with that, Jonathan.
Yeah. I've been staring at marshmallows the entire time. Marshmallows are like crack to me. They're so good.
Amber's
she bought like the pink
cookies.
ones. The pink ones are like the weird marshmallows that have like a funky taste. Anyway,
no make good
cookie
stuff.
Time. Cookie time.
Yeah, it's cookie time. Hey, great chat, Jonathan. Thanks for having me. Hope I get to come back for another episode.
Yeah, you're not fired yet.
Hope. Well, let's wait till this airs to decide that, Jonathan.
Right.
We got some distance between now and the actual airing. I could possibly be fired by the time people hear this.
All right. Well, podcast out. Bye, everybody.